Alright, this past month saw a ruckus of models being released, banned, and re-released. This episode will tell you everything you need to know, and also a small conspiracy theory that I will tell you at the end. Technologia, here we go. And so let's start at the beginning. And the beginning is April 7, 2026. That is when Anthropic releases Project Glasswing. And Project Glasswing itself stems from Mythos. They also released it on April 7th, and they claimed that it was so dangerous, it was impossible to release to the public safely. And therefore what they did was gather a set of partners such as Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, JP Morgan, and they gave the model to them so they could cover and secure the holes they had in their software. Therefore, when they released the model publicly, the bugs that the model could find in their software were already covered. And with the release of Mythos on April 7, Anthropic really starts pushing towards the AI is so dangerous narrative. Now we timeskip from Project Glasswing to June 9th. On this day, Anthropic releases a blog post titled Claude Mythos 5 and Claude Fable 5. These are their new, strongest models, with Mythos being a model with the security safeguards off for cybersecurity teams, and Fable 5 one with novel classifiers in place so that harmful prompts could be catched. And when a harmful prompt is detected, then the response is automatically rerouted to a less capable model, such as Opus 4.8. Throughout the blog post, Anthropic of course talks about how these models go past the frontier of what was thought possible, but I like to point to this specific sentence. With more capable models arriving in the coming months, we're working to improve our safeguards and reduce false positives as quickly as we can. The important thing here is the first phrase, with more capable models arriving in the coming months. Therefore, Anthropic already knew that they're going to be releasing more capable models in the coming months. I think that this might be pointing to Claunnet 5, which we are going to talk about later. The very next day, June 10th, a guy named Pliny The Liberator releases a post on X saying that they jailbreaked Fable 5. It literally took less than a day for this guy to hack the model. Not much is known about Pliny the Liberator, though he is on Time's 100 AI list. But it seems that the actual reason why the government took action against Anthropic's models was Amazon. On their blog post redeploying Fable 5, Anthropic said that Amazon developers told the government that the model, Fable 5, could be easily jailbroken. And so, June 12, 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time, Anthropic receives a letter from Howard Lutnick, who is the United States Secretary of Commerce, which effectively bans Anthropic from releasing the models Fable 5 and Mythos 5 to non-US citizens. And Anthropic responded to this saying that we can't track our users real time. We can't know whether a user is a US citizen. Therefore, they simply banned the model for everyone. Anthropic also responded to the government letter by saying that the jailbreak was narrow. It is not a universal jailbreak that will allow a hacker or attacker to use the model anyhow they like. An interesting statement Anthropic made was, "We have reviewed a report that we believe is the basis of the government's directive and validated that the level of capability displayed there is widely available from other models, including OpenAI's ChatGPT 5.5, and is used every day by the defenders who keep the system safe. We'll share more details over the next 24 hours. So what they're saying is that, hey, other models are as strong as Fable in this area which the jailbreak has jailbroken. And you're not banning them, right? So why are you banning us? Anthropic also published a tweet on Twitter on June 13th, which was basically a summarized response to the government directive. Again, we time skip into the future to June 27. Anthropic releases a tweet saying, "Since June 12, we have been working closely with the US government to restore access to Cloud Mythos 5 and Fable 5. Today, the government notified us that Mythos 5, our strongest cybersecurity model, can be redeployed to a set of US organizations that operate and defend critical infrastructure. We're restoring assets for these organizations quickly, and we're continuing to work with the government to expand access to Mythos 5 and make Fable 5 available for general use again. Since June 12, we've been working closely with the US government. This sounds pretty close to the deal Anthropic and the US government made in the beginning of the year, where the US government was given priority access to Anthropic's models. June 30th, Anthropic releases a blog post called Introducing Claude Sonnet 5. This was their new kind of mid-tier model which would replace Sonnet 4.6. And of course, all the metrics look very nice on Anthropic's blog post, and it performs a lot better and for less cost, but everyone is really mad at Anthropic. Everyone says that Sonnet 5 is worse than Sonnet 4.6. Why is that? Well, I think that Anthropic is dedicating more hardware to Fable 5 and Mythos 5, which are probably tremendous in trillions and trillions of parameters, and therefore they have to minimize the amount of compute for Sonnet 5 and therefore make it dumber. That is my personal theory, and I can't prove it, but it does seem very plausible. Also on June 30th, Anthropic publishes another tweet saying, "We've received notice that the Department of Commerce has lifted export controls on Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5. We'll begin restoring access tomorrow and we'll share an update soon." So it takes about 18 days for Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5 to be relaunched. And all that talk about AI being too dangerous is nearly forgotten. And the largest release on June 30th, Anthropic publishes a post called Redeploying Fable 5. And it is quite a pretty interesting piece of literature. I would like to note this one thing. In the blog post, Anthropic does not address issues about its model being dangerous. Instead, it focuses on saying that other models are simply as dangerous as Mythos, and therefore we can release Mythos. It goes like this. Our testing confirmed that many less capable models, including Claude Opus 4.8, ChatGPT 5.5, and Kimi 2.7, could identify the same vulnerabilities as Fable 5 did in the report. Now that's quite interesting. So Fable isn't as strong as we all thought it was, huh? The redeployed Fable 5 also has a lot stronger security safeguards. To me, it seems like they made it even too safe that Fable would cut off in the middle of a harmless response. At the end of the blog post, Anthropic had a section titled Partnering with the US Government on Frontier AI Security, and there Anthropic talked about partnering with the US government on AI security, and also expanding Project Glasswing, which we talked about first, to include more companies. And I find it perplexing. Why do you need so many big tech companies to help you manage this one thing? Wouldn't it be better if we just released it to everyone, and we had thousands upon thousands of security researchers working on the model together? I don't think releasing the model to some privileged companies will do much good. And Anthropic also maintains a very, I'd say, excited air about collaborating with the government, or collaborating, which makes me wonder, why do they want so much government intervention into AI? We see the results of government intervention into AI in places like Europe, where the government put so many sanctions on AI companies that it is very hard to maintain an AI company. Again, another tweet from Anthropic where they say, after a series of productive conversations with the US government, we're redeploying the model with a new set of classifiers to target and block more cybersecurity tasks. Again, collaborating closely with the government. This smells of the deal they had earlier, but I thought they kinda went different ways, that Anthropic didn't want the government to use their models. And on Dario Amodei's blog, they actually have a whole post dedicated to the subject of policy and AI. And the whole entire thing is just seeping with the idea that AI should be controlled by the government. And of course on their blog post they talk about that we don't want this to become a tyranny, we don't want the government to have all control, we of course have to have checks and balances in place. But the problem is that we are giving the government power over AI and still no checks or balances are in sight. Now, I think that the government is great at doing many things, but I don't think that AI is or should be one of them. And the last blog post Anthropic published on the topic of Fable 5 as of now, more details on Fable's 5 cyber safeguards and our jailbreak framework. And the article does talk about Fable 5 security safeguards, but also about a novel jailbreak ranking system that Anthropic created. It works on a scale from 1 to 5 or 0 to 4, where 0 is informational, such as a very simple jailbreak that doesn't really do much, and number 4, critical. And this article is a very interesting read, as redeploying Fable 5 on the Anthropic blog did not really contain any useful information about Fable 5 safeguards. Why is Anthropic doing this? Why is Dario Amodei continuously saying that AI is dangerous and so getting his models banned? Well, number one, Anthropic's IPO is this year. Dario wants to push up the prices as high as he can, and the government banning your model is a pretty good way to hype up investors. A cool theory I heard from The Primogen was that Dario, finding that AI isn't as profitable as it seemed and seeing that he will not be able to pay off all investors, wants the US government to buy Anthropic for more than it is currently priced, and therefore the US government becomes in debt to the investors and not Dario. That is also possible. It feels kind of weird that Anthropic releases their models, gets them banned, and then a mere 18 days afterwards, they get re-released. And all the talk about them being too dangerous just disappears into the thin air. And there might be a slight conspiracy theory around all these AI companies, not only Anthropic. What they are doing right now is lowering the costs of their tokens that they spend tremendously for the users. You are paying 1/10 of the price of the actual token. And what all these AI companies want is more customers. So they put all these developers onto their AI products. And what happens? The developers lose their touch. They stop coding, stop exercising, therefore becoming worse developers. And what happens is that they then raise the prices of their products to the actual price or close to it, and the developers have no other choice than to pay the providers because they cannot work otherwise. But this entire story with Fable 5 and Mythos 5 does smell something weird, though it might be the dead rat.